When discussing the Iraqi dinar and the constant speculation about a possible RV or revaluation, it is essential to separate reality from myth because for more than a decade this currency has been surrounded by rumors, online forums filled with hopeful investors, and so-called gurus who promise overnight wealth. Yet the truth is more complex and rooted in economics, central banking policy, and geopolitical realities. And in order to clarify this tangled subject, we must explore the top 5 myths about the Iraqi Dinar RV, showing why they persist, why they are misleading, and what the real facts are that shape the dinar's future. The first myth is the most widespread. The belief that the Iraqi dinar will suddenly revalue overnight to match the US dollar or surpass it, with exchange rates like 1 IQD equals 1 US dollar or even higher sometimes claimed in speculative circles. And while this fantasy attracts people who dream of instant riches, it has no grounding in economic reality because currencies are not revalued by political decree to create wealth out of thin air. Instead, exchange rates reflect the underlying productivity, economic strength, and reserves of a country, and for Iraq to raise the dinar to parity with the dollar would require a monetary base and reserve structure it does not possess, as well as decades of economic growth, industrial diversification, and political stability, none of which can materialize in one stroke, and history shows that no post-conflict nation has ever performed such a dramatic Big Bang revaluation without collapsing its financial system in the process, making this myth not just wrong but dangerously misleading for those who invest blindly. The second myth is that Iraq's vast oil reserves will automatically guarantee a massive currency revaluation, as if being resource-rich equates to having a strong currency. But in reality, oil wealth is only beneficial if it is managed properly, invested in development, and shielded from corruption. And Iraq, while possessing the 5th largest proven oil reserves in the world, has long suffered from rentier state dynamics, dependency on crude exports, smuggling, political capture of oil revenues, and a lack of economic diversification, which means that its oil wealth does not automatically translate into a powerful dinar. In fact, the over-reliance on oil makes the currency vulnerable to fluctuations in global energy markets, as seen during the 2014 oil price crash or the pandemic in 2020, when Iraq had to devalue the dinar to preserve foreign reserves. So the idea that oil alone will force a dramatic RV ignores the lessons of other resource-rich countries like Venezuela, Nigeria, or Angola, where oil wealth coexisted with weak currencies due to mismanagement. The third myth is that the Central Bank of Iraq, CBI, has already secretly planned or announced a revaluation, and that investors simply need to wait for the right trigger event, such as a new government law, a budget approval, or a geopolitical agreement. But the reality is that the CBI has consistently stated its commitment to maintaining exchange rate stability and to making gradual, carefully calibrated adjustments, not sudden leaps, and what people often confuse with RV announcements are actually discussions of redenomination, removing zeros from the currency to simplify transactions, which is entirely different from revaluation because it does not change the real value of money but simply alters the face value of banknotes for convenience. For example, if 1,000 old dinars became 1 new dinar under redenomination, prices and salaries would be adjusted accordingly, meaning no one becomes richer overnight. And yet many misinterpret these policy debates as signs of an imminent RV, when in fact they are just technical discussions about improving efficiency in the payment system. The fourth myth centers on the belief that international organizations such as the IMF, World Bank, or even the US Treasury are secretly pressuring Iraq to revalue the dinar to restore its true value or to reward foreign investors. But this narrative misrepresents how these institutions operate, because while they do influence Iraq through lending programs, compliance frameworks, and anti-money laundering standards, none of them dictate or demand a specific exchange rate for the dinar, since currency policy is a sovereign decision of the Central Bank of Iraq. Furthermore, global institutions generally prefer stability over shock, and a sudden revaluation would destabilize Iraq's economy and ripple across its trade system, making such a scenario contrary to the very stability these organizations promote. And in fact, when Iraq has faced exchange rate pressures, the IMF has encouraged managed adjustments, not radical revaluations, confirming that the story of hidden international orders pushing for RV is baseless. The fifth myth is that holding dinar banknotes purchased abroad will one day make individual investors overnight millionaires when the RV hits, as if a small speculative purchase could transform personal fortunes magically. But this myth exploits people's hopes and misunderstanding of how foreign exchange actually works. In reality, even if Iraq's economy grows stronger and the dinar gradually appreciates over decades, the scale of appreciation will not be in the astronomical range promoted by RV forums, and even modest gains would be offset by the costs of holding physical dinars, risks of counterfeit currency, difficulty of redeeming notes abroad, and the fact that Iraq has tight capital controls, meaning that mass cash out by foreign holders is practically impossible without creating a black market crisis. So the vision of small investors cashing in at banks worldwide for millions of dollars is unrealistic, and instead the true beneficiaries of a stronger dinar would be Iraq's citizens and domestic businesses through improved purchasing power, not speculative outsiders. These 5 myths, taken together, create a powerful but deceptive narrative that has attracted thousands of hopeful believers over the years. Yet each one crumbles under scrutiny when tested against economic logic, central banking principles, and Iraq's actual situation. And what persists is not evidence of truth but rather the persistence of rumor networks, online echo chambers, and opportunistic promoters who sell dinar banknotes or subscriptions to investment newsletters. The psychology behind these myths is worth noting because they tap into universal human desires for quick wealth, for finding hidden opportunities missed by the mainstream, and for believing in redemption stories where a war-torn nation rises suddenly to glory. And while these desires are understandable, they can cloud judgment and create fertile ground for misinformation. A deeper examination of the myths reveals how each has kernels of reality, such as Iraq's oil wealth, discussions of currency reforms, or the role of international organizations. But those kernels are exaggerated or distorted into promises of sudden wealth, when in truth the path of the Iraqi dinar is one of gradual adjustments, tied closely to oil revenues, political reforms, anti-corruption measures, and broader economic diversification. The persistence of these myths also harms Iraq because it reduces serious discussion about genuine reforms, distracts attention from real issues like improving electricity supply, building infrastructure, and supporting private enterprise, and instead shifts focus toward fantasies of instant wealth, which can breed cynicism and disappointment when the miracle RV never arrives. For those genuinely interested in Iraq's economic future, the responsible perspective is to see the dinar as a managed currency that may strengthen slowly as Iraq stabilizes and grows, but never as a lottery ticket, and to recognize that investment in Iraq requires long-term engagement in sectors like energy, agriculture, and infrastructure, not speculation in banknotes. The global market's reaction to Iraq is shaped not by rumors of RV but by tangible reforms, credible governance, and oil market dynamics, and until those fundamentals change significantly, the dinar will remain in its managed band, adjusted occasionally but never subject to the myths that dominate speculative chatter. In conclusion, the top 5 myths about the Iraqi dinar RV: sudden parity with the dollar, oil guaranteeing revaluation, secret central bank plans, international pressure for RV, and overnight millionaire stories, are all illusions that persist because they appeal to hope more than to fact. But those who seek the truth must understand that currencies do not transform by magic, only by hard economic work, and Iraq's future lies not in a Big Bang RV but in a slow climb of reforms, discipline, and stability that over time may bring real, lasting strength to the dinar, benefiting Iraqis themselves above all others. The story of the Iraqi dinar and the constant rumors of a massive revaluation has fascinated, confused, and misled people for over 2 decades. But when stripped of speculation and myth, the truth is far simpler. There will not be a sudden overnight big jump in the dinar's value because such a move is impossible under economic reality, and instead the only viable path is a slow, gradual climb tied to Iraq's fundamentals. Since 2003, the Central Bank of Iraq has managed the dinar through a controlled peg, making adjustments only in small increments such as the 2020 devaluation to 1,460 per dollar and the 2023 strengthening to 1,320. Moves reflecting 10 to 20% shifts, not thousands of percent. And this is how central banks operate, focusing on stability and inflation control rather than creating overnight wealth. The popular idea of an RV transforming cheap dinars into millions of dollars is based on misunderstanding or deliberate misinformation, often tied to sellers of dinar banknotes who profit from the illusion, or to online forums that recycle the same claims each year. And these myths persist because they exploit human hope, the appeal of secret knowledge, and even national pride, as many Iraqis see the dinar as a symbol of dignity and recovery. In reality, even proposals to remove 3 zeros from the currency are about redenomination, changing accounting units without altering real value. Yet many continue to misinterpret this as proof of a pending windfall. Global financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank emphasize slow reforms, improved fiscal management, and anti-corruption measures as the only path to real progress, while international investors view dinar movements as signals of routine policy, not a revolution, and this difference highlights how myths thrive mostly in retail speculation circles abroad, not in professional markets. The structural obstacles to a big jump are overwhelming. Iraq has tens of trillions of dinars in circulation and just over $100 billion in reserves, meaning it lacks the capacity to back an overnight revaluation, and sudden appreciation would also hurt the economy by raising import costs and fueling inflation. By contrast, a slow climb is achievable if Iraq continues building reserves, diversifying its economy beyond oil, improving banking compliance, and attracting foreign investment, all of which could gradually strengthen demand for the dinar over many years, just as other oil-rich states have built stable, valuable currencies through discipline and reform. Yet myths endure because they are profitable to sustain and emotionally powerful to believe, creating echo chambers online where confirmation bias turns every minor headline into a coded signal of RV readiness. But the sober truth is that Iraq's future will be determined not by secret plans but by visible progress. Combating corruption, stabilizing political relations, modernizing infrastructure, and wisely investing oil revenues. If these steps are taken consistently, Iraq can achieve a stronger and more respected currency, but this will benefit the Iraqi people slowly rather than granting instant wealth to foreign speculators. Ultimately, the myth of the RV is a cautionary tale about human psychology, financial ignorance, and the dangers of easy promises, while the reality is that currencies reflect productivity, governance, and trust, not rumors or wishful thinking. And so anyone serious about the dinar should set aside fantasies of sudden revaluation and instead watch the long road of reform, because the Iraqi dinar's future lies not in a big jump but in the possibility of a steady, earned climb.